Hey viewers, my name's Kara. Happy December and welcome to my personal channel. Firstly, excuse any intermittent creaking that you hear from the chair. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's squeakier than usual. So there's that. Today, I want to talk about something that I did not expect to find. You already saw it in the thumbnail. I went to the library recently and I was looking in the young adult fiction section because that's where things like John Green novels are, and I like stuff like that, and I've read a lot of good young adult fiction in the past few years. And I did not expect to see, staring out at me, this spine-tingling tale, Hocus Pocus, the book, and the all-new sequel. This just came out in 2018. I did not look it up to find out when in 2018. I just looked at the copyright date in the book and it said this year. I don't know why I hadn't even heard about this, but it's published by Disney, so obviously, because it's a Disney thing. So it's very interesting. I want to tell you about it. So the first part of the book is, and here's the cover, the first part of the book is the movie Hocus Pocus, like almost down to the word, scene by scene, line by line. But there are some interesting additions. Like it starts out a little differently, so they're kind of setting up the scene differently, but then it's pretty much just like reading, not the script of the movie, but reading a description line by line of the movie. Because of course, if you saw the script, it would just have stage directions and lines. So this is fuller, it's a book. But it's very true to the film. And so I found myself kind of wanting to skip through it like, well, I've seen the movie a million times. I want to get to the other part because the second part of this book, the all-new sequel, it takes place 25 years later. So I'll get to that in a second. I'll read you what the back of the book says about it and everything. So it won't be spoilers. It's just what's on the back of the book. It's how they advertise it. But so I found myself kind of wanting to skip through the beginning part of the book, right? Because I'm like, I already know what happens in Hocus Pocus. I've seen it probably 30 times in the past 25 years since it came out. The movie's almost as old as I am, and I've been watching it almost as long. But I ended up reading almost the entire thing. I skimmed a little bit just because I was trying to get it done before I left the library, and that didn't work out because I finished the first part, the Hocus Pocus part, in just under 2 hours. So it's about the length of reading a play, all told. But then it didn't really occur to me that like the new part, of course, is going to be longer than that because it's new and it's in book form, so they can kind of do whatever they want with it. So I did end up checking it out from the library, obviously, and finishing it a couple days later. But, so I'm glad that I didn't just totally skip the first part because there are some little additions in it that are really interesting. Because it's a book and not a film, they were able to do some different things with it, such as every so often giving us a little internal monologue of what's going on inside the minds of the characters that wasn't directly expressed through lines in the film. And there's a little bit more Sanderson sisters family history, little nuggets of their sisterly behavior being dropped, and more of their love for their mother that they're always talking about. Mother, more about her, and just like little teasers, like kind of setting it up that you can tell there's more to this tale than we were able to know in the film just through the perspective of the Dennisons and Allison going through this crazy experience on a Halloween night and interacting with the Sanderson sisters. But it's not just what the Sandersons said out loud that we got to see in the film, but there's also like inside their heads in the book. And that was really interesting to me. And let me think if there's anything else to say about the first part before I move on. Not really. It's just little extra stuff that was very interesting. That's kind of like, ooh, okay, that's something we didn't know before. And you can sort of tell that they're setting something up. So your impression, of course, is that they're setting something up for this sequel. So let me read you what's on the back for the sequel. On the back, it does give a short description of the first part of Hocus Pocus, which is basically the description of the film, and it is this. Shortly after moving from California to Salem, Massachusetts, Max Dennison finds himself in hot water when he accidentally releases a coven of witches, the Sanderson sisters, from the afterlife. Max, his sister, and his new friends, human and otherwise, must find a way to stop the witches from carrying out their evil plan and remaining on Earth to torment Salem for all eternity. That's basically a description of the film, Hocus Pocus, which came out in 1993. And then this is the description of the second part of the book. 25 years later, Max and Allison's 17-year-old daughter, Poppy, finds herself face to face with the Sanderson sisters in all their sinister glory. When Halloween celebrations don't go quite as planned, it's a race against time as Poppy and her friends fight to save her family and all of Salem from the witch's latest vile scheme. Ba-ba-bum. Okay, so right away, we learn that 25 years down the line, Max and Allison have stayed together in this version of the story. So happily ever after, at least 25 years later, is still a thing. Max and Allison got together. They had a daughter. She's 17 now. Her name is Poppy. Poppy's a very popular name right now. Popular. It's a beautiful name. I like it. I'm just saying. Princess Poppy. Very popular as well right now. So, yeah. So that's what the second part of the book is about. And other than reading you that, I don't want to give you any direct spoilers of, like, what happens in the story, but I am going to talk to you about what I liked about it, what was weird about it, and yeah, just about my experience reading it. So it was definitely fun. It's written by a Disney writer, so just kind of along the lines of Hocus Pocus. I mean, Hocus Pocus is one of the witchy films that we all, even if we identify as witches, as modern day practicing witches today, we still love this movie. So even though we know, like, the Sanderson sisters are portrayed as evil, nasty, eating children, trying to steal the lives of children, trying to take over Salem, but they're not pictured as very nice people who we want to be. And although we might not personally identify with that, like, we're not trying to steal the lives of children and take over the world, we still love them. It's in that same regard, right? So the 25 years later section of the book, obviously, occurs in 2018. This year was the 25-year anniversary of the film. So I'm guessing that's why they decided to do this. So it takes place now, supposedly, and witches in general are still described throughout the book as being, like, weird, they don't really exist, magic doesn't really exist, yada yada. So, I mean, as modern practitioners of magic and witchcraft, like, we know that's not true, but again, it's something that we're used to from the film. So, like, I'm not mad at it for that reason. It's a Disney movie turned book. So, like, I get it. They're still gonna say witches are evil and all of this. But they do a little bit of talking about evil witches and the fact that there are good witches out there. So they do kind of introduce the idea that, like, hey, we know that not all witches are out there trying to steal and eat children's souls in order to live forever. Like, that's a thing that not all witches are doing. But yes, it does focus on the evil witches and their evil plots. Other than that, I mean, Poppy is 17, so there is a lot of young adult fiction-y-ness of the book, right? It takes place in her high school, well, the high school in Salem, Massachusetts, because they're still living there. They didn't always. We sort of learned that Max and Allison had lived elsewhere, but then decided to move back to Salem. So Poppy is growing up in Salem. This is all happening, again, right down the street from the Sanderson sisters' centuries-old home that is still sitting there rotting, you know, especially since the last fiasco in 1993 when the Sanderson sisters came back. So it's very much a continuation that, like, the people in the town have grown up and people don't talk about what happened. Like, some people don't remember, some people don't know, the people who do know don't talk about it. So a lot of it is just like Poppy in high school, dealing with friends, dealing with bullies, dealing with school and assignments and stuff like that. But it's also like, you know, her family has this profound history with the Sanderson sisters on Halloween. And so that's kind of weird for her. Halloween's coming up. How's that going to be handled? You know, is she teased about it? Are people cool with it? Who thinks it's cool and who thinks she's a crazy weirdo freak? Yeah. Also, because it's 2018, the book talks about, like, it's just so interesting for me reading books that are written now, reading books that are written about now, that are doing things like talking about Instagram and Snapchat and using text speak. And like, I've read books for years that have like little inserts of like, here's what this character texted to the other character, and those bits are in text speak. But like, because this is giving you a look like inside the minds of people, like, it'll be saying something like, you know, Poppy didn't know that could happen IRL. And it just says IRL, you know, like, it's funny to me to think 25 years from now, are we still going to be using some of the same slang? Are people going to know what that stuff meant? What about 50 years from now? What about 100 years from now? Are people still going to be watching Hocus Pocus on some new futuristic device? Or are people still going to be reading this and going like, what is Snapchat? Like, what is that? And for me, it's just like, right, because I graduated from high school a decade ago now, and things are so different. Like, we didn't have social media, we didn't have smartphones in our pockets the entire time. Most of us didn't even have a cell phone, but at the time, maybe it could send texts in T9 word. And so for me, it's like the scenes where students are texting each other underneath the desks, and like, you know, the bullying happens face to face, but also in the sense that like you look up and you see your bully texting their friends across the room, or getting a text from their friend and laughing out loud at it and then sneering at you. And like, it's just a whole nother level to it. And obviously I haven't been in a high school for 10 years. So like, I have a vague awareness that that's what's happening, that that's what current high schoolers are dealing with. But for me, it's like reading it and just being like, God, that really sucks. Like, that really, really sucks. I'm so glad we didn't have that when I was in school, because back in my day, you had to get out a piece of paper and write a note and actually pass it to someone and risk getting in trouble that way. Like, why do you all have your phones in your classes? Get rid of them. I don't know. I'm kidding. I actually know there are teachers who embrace that kind of thing. It just depends. Don't let it be a distraction. Don't be bullying people, especially not for what happened to their family 25 years ago when evil witches came back and tried to eat their souls. Like, have a heart, dude. Come on. So yeah, stuff like that. I have to say, all right, so I'm trying to think, like, generally I enjoyed it, okay? The only thing, honestly, like, this is me being a huge nerd. The only thing that honestly bothers me about this book is that, all right, well, other than the fact that they kind of like go overboard with trying to make things sound super magical and witchy that are just like not necessarily. I don't know, it's Disney, you know, whatever. But the one thing that really bothers me is that, all right, so it takes place 25 years later because it's the 25-year anniversary of Hocus Pocus, right? Quarter of a century, woo! So it takes place on Halloween 2018. But because it's about the Sanderson sisters and they're all like, ooh, the magic happens on Halloween and it could be really dangerous. So back in 1993, when the original film came out, the thing was that if a virgin lights the black flame candle on Halloween night when there's a full moon, the witches will come back from the dead. All of these things lined up in the 1993 film because it came out that year and it was set that year. And in 1993, Halloween night was actually a full moon. If you look it up on some of the moon apps, it says it was like 99% full, so it was just before the full 100% alignment, or it was just after the alignment on Halloween. But still, 99% full, that definitely looks like a full moon in the sky. It still affects us as much as a full moon does. And we still use it in the same sense in magic, because the 100% illumination moment, it's a moment, right? It's not really a long extended period of time. It's like working up to it, working up to it, working up to it, 100%, and then 99% waning, right? So it's a very small window. But Halloween in 1993 had that going on. 25 years later, this year, Halloween was not a full moon, okay? It was not a full moon. It was a quarter moon. But in the book, they still make a big deal about how this Halloween, it's going to be a full moon. Only they don't say full moon. The big deal that they make about it is that Allison's warning everybody magic is going to be extra strong tonight because it's a blood moon. So for those of you who may not know, a blood moon is the name that we give to a full moon when a total lunar eclipse happens, because the moon ends up looking red. It looks like it's bloodied. And so they don't call it a full moon, but they call it a blood moon, and a blood moon occurs when the moon is full and there's an eclipse. Like, that's when a blood moon happens. To their credit, they actually try to have Mary, one of the Sanderson sisters, they try to have Mary explain what a blood moon is to Winnie, and of course Winnie cuts her off, and she's like, oh, I don't care, shut up. But, so they try to actually say, like, well, a blood moon is when da-da-da, and it looks red because this, and then she gets cut off. However, it bothers me, as a huge nerd, that there wasn't a blood moon on Halloween in 2018. There just wasn't. It just wasn't. So that's honestly the only thing that really, really bothers me about it, is like, and that's only because I always thought it was so cool that the film came out in 1993 and it was set in 1993, and it was all about when there's a full moon on Halloween and a virgin lights the black flame candle, and it was actually a full moon on Halloween in 1993. Like, I always thought that was so cool that they lined that up. And so, yeah, I'm disappointed that when they did the book, they didn't line it up to what was really going on with the moon phase, especially when it's so easy to look up. So yeah, that's literally my only disappointment with it. I don't have a lot of other expectations from it, just that it'll have the Sanderson sisters and it'll be a funny, fun Halloween story. Like, there are ghosts, there's magic, there's friendship, there's people coming together against all odds to try to save the world, and there's just more evil witches in this one. That's all I'll say, really, because I don't want to spoil it for you. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Other than that, I mean, and there were a lot of moments where I was just like, really? Really? But then my partner was like, it's Disney writing about witches. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's fine. I still love Hocus Pocus. We all still love it. So yeah, that's been my experience reading Hocus Pocus, the book, in the all-new sequel. It's written by, they just put the person's initials because it just says Disney. It doesn't say the author's name because it doesn't matter the individual people. It's just Disney, the corporation. So, but on the inside cover, it does say written by A.W. Jantha, Jantha, based on the screenplay by Mick Garris and Neil Cuthbert, story by David Kirshner and Mick Garris. Published by Freeform Books, Los Angeles and New York, copyright 2018, illustrations by Matt Griffin, copyright Disney Enterprises. So yeah. Printed in the US. Oh, first hardcover edition, July of 2018. Cool. Oh, what? Oh, that's just some publishing stuff. I was like, what is this? It says this book is set in. And I was like, it's set in Salem, Massachusetts. What is it talking about? Oh, one other thing I could show you real quick. just before I wrap it up, because this isn't really spoilers. So part 1 is then, part 2 is now, but it has a map of Salem Village, so you get kind of a sense of historically how it lined up with what's there now. And so it shows you, like, this is Salem Woods, where the Sanderson sisters' house is, and this is the cemetery, and the common, and just all kind of, but really the only landmarks on it are the Sanderson house and the cemetery. And then in the second part, in the second part, we get a slightly more detailed and modern map, because it's 2018, and and it tells you where some of the other characters' houses are. So this map actually has Max's childhood home, Allison's childhood home, the cemetery, the Sanderson house, the old town hall where the dance occurs, where all of the parents are hypnotized in the original film. Poppy's friends' houses are labeled on the map, a row of shops, some other stuff. So stuff that's relevant to the new part of the book is mapped out for us, which I think is pretty fun. I like when there are maps at the beginning of fantasy stories. And yeah, this one's just cool because it takes place in a real place, but fictionalizes it also. So yeah. I hope you check it out if you want to. Check your local library. This was through the Cleveland Public Library system that I checked this out, and I will be returning it now that I've done a video because I am finished with it. Goodbye. But all in all, fun new book. Or as Winnie would say, book. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time, and until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.